I'm working with Michael Harding oil colors, and the colors that I'm using for this demo are from left to right: titanium white, yellow ochre, cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, raw umber, burnt umber, and ultramarine blue. I mix a few extra colors to add to this palette. The first one is orange. I use yellow ochre and cadmium red light for this orange. The next color that I'm going to mix will be a green. For that I will use yellow ochre and ultramarine blue. I make sure that this green is slightly more towards the yellow. Then I mix a purple, and for that I use ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. It's a fairly deep purple. Then I mix a brilliant or bright pink, and for that I use cadmium red light and alizarin crimson, and I will add a little bit of white to that. I then mix a black using ultramarine blue and burnt umber. I use a little bit more burnt umber so that my black is more towards the brown. It's more a brown black. Now I mix a basic skin tone, and for this basic skin tone I will use yellow ochre and I will add a little bit of cadmium red light to it. I get an orange, and in order to tone this orange down I'll add a little bit of ultramarine blue. The result is quite a muddy color, but that's fine. I will test this basic skin tone by taking a little bit of it and put it one side on my palette and add a little bit of white to that, just to make sure that I'm moving in the right direction. Okay, now that I have all my colors ready, I can start to paint my eye. During this first step, I start off by defining the shapes and basically drawing the eye using raw umber. I use a very dry brush technique to make sure that I apply my paint as thin as possible. I work with the basic tonal values and the basic shapes. I keep it simple, and I make sure that I do not paint any detail now. When I'm happy with all my basic shapes, I start to block in the color. I work from dark to light. During this step, I basically want to cover my canvas, putting the right colors more or less in the right places. You will notice that I don't start adding white too soon. I find if I start adding white too soon that my skin tends to look chalky and dirty. I keep it simple, and I don't paint any detail at this point of time. I use this basic skin tone that I mixed in the beginning all the time, and I adjust it as I go along. I add a little bit of the cadmium red light, I add a little bit of the green, I add a little bit of the purple. I look very carefully at what I see. I ask myself constantly, what do I see? Sometimes it's just subtle changes in color, and I love to work with the optical mixture of colors, like putting two complementaries next to each other, a little bit of pink and a little bit of green, And the way those two colors almost dance with each other creates this almost luminosity in the skin. Okay, now that the skin is covered, we can start with the detail. This is the fun part. Now I start to paint with the light. I start working with the white, but I don't use pure white. I'm constantly adding color to my white. Add a little bit of red, a little bit of green, a little bit of pink, a little bit of yellow, and I adjust it all the time. It's very important that I still ask myself all the time, what do I see? I don't blend as much as it might seem. I let the eye blend the colors, not the brush. Okay, let's move to the inside of the eye and let the magic begin. I love to start with my iris being almost black. Now in this case where the eye is blue, I use ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt umber added to that, and I add white for it to start to bring in the light in the eye. Now we'll gradually start to bring in the lighter colors until I'm happy with the tonal value. Be careful not to make the white of the eye too light. So I'm constantly squinting and comparing the tonal value of the white of the eye with the other areas of the skin to make sure that it's not too light and that it doesn't come too much to the front. When painting an eye, your light is just as important as your shadows. So you want a difference in tonal value between the lights and the darks, and especially in an eye, because the light highlights and the reflections is what creates life in the eye. So it's very important to look what you see and to paint what you see. Notice how everything just starts to pop as soon as you start to play with the light. I'm also still constantly looking at my shapes and adjusting the shapes where I feel it's necessary, especially when it gets to the iris. And what helps me to get the eye to look in the right direction is to look at the shape that you get on the white area on the left side and the right side of the iris. I look at the shapes that I get and I look at the size and the position of that. In other words, I'm working with negative shapes. I'm constantly reminding myself that there's color in everything, and every little highlight has a shape. I'm using the light and the shadows to help me to create the shape and the roundness of the eye. I'm using very light brush strokes. I put very little pressure on the tip of my brush. Brush is almost a tool that I use to sculpt with. I put paint on and I remove paint. Very delicately. I'm revisiting some of the highlights just to make sure that I've got it light enough, because I want that highlight to really pop. Now I'm moving back to the skin area and I start to bring in more light. So it needs quite a bit more light. So I will gradually build the light and the highlights up until I'm happy with it. Okay, before I carry on with the skin, I've got a little bit of eyelashes that I need to define. Going to do that as well. A little bit of shadow of the eyelash. Just break the highlight with the brush a little. Look carefully what I see, what is happening there where the eyelashes are. They're not very prominent, so it's just a few little shapes, but it does make a difference. I make also sure that I keep my edges soft. I am working with skin, so it's very important that I keep my edges fairly soft. My highlights are not light enough yet, so I'm going to keep on working on them, making it lighter and lighter gradually until they are light enough. These highlights are so important because they help you to create the texture of the skin. Okay, we're almost there. It's now just for the eyebrows. I painted the eyebrows, once again working from dark to light, and now I'm just finishing off the lower eyelid by putting the last final few eyelashes that I can see, and then we're done.